Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, sorry about the delay and welcome to the Parallels Map Management for SCCM webinar. My name is Georgia Survey of the Infront Consulting Group, and I've got Rory McCaw here as well. He's the CEO and founder of Infront. We're excited to have Danny Knox from Parallels, our partner, presenting on this plugin for SCCM. And we'll hand over control to him in a couple of minutes. I'm going to just hand over the microphone to Rory, who wants to say a few words.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Georgia. And welcome, Danny, and everyone who's in attendance. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hear a little about how Parallels, and particularly the Parallels Map Management for Microsoft SCCM software, can help address some of the challenges that we find customers have in integrating the management of Macs with their existing investment into System Center. As most of you know who are on the call, who are using System Center Configuration Manager or SCCM today, there is some native support built in to SCCM to handle map management. But I think what you'll find is in the typical scenario, most of our customers that we work with in the enterprise space, they have a smaller percentage of Mac systems that they're looking for. And Parallels can offer you a tremendous amount of value in being able to integrate the management of those Macs into the existing interface or existing single pane of glass view through SCCM and really provide an extremely enhanced set of management offerings without having to deploy yet another tool that has a separate console and a new learning curve. So there's certainly some benefits in terms of reduced learning curve, time to market that you can achieve with the PMF or Parallels Map Management tool for SCCM. And some of those specifically are the ability to say deploy OSX integration profiles, as well as use the profile editor for your OSX configurations, and then to be able to deploy software via an SCCM package deployment, or provide OSX package management, have a self-service application portal, and deploy OSX images via SCCM and leverage SCCM cascades. When it comes to remotely assisting your users, you have the ability, which I'm sure Danny will touch upon, to leverage SSH, and then you can also leverage remote assistance via VNC and SSH with the Parallels Management tool. So there's a great deal of additional value add that Parallels provides at a relatively low cost or low investment that allows for an organization to leverage SCCM to its full capacity beyond just your typical business desktop and server environment. So we're happy to deliver this webinar to you today as part of Infront. We are a Parallels partner, and we do a great deal of SCCM and the general System Center integration and implementation work, whether it's helping you to migrate from the older version of SCCM to one that you built, or plan that architecture and get things in place and structured properly, or simply perform, say, a health check on some of the System Center technology itself, or implement patch automation with our OPAS tool, which provides the ability to automate very complex workloads, but also simple workloads, and validate that the application is healthy and responding, up and running and available after the server patching before you use the systems on your basis. And we guarantee 100% compliance on your highly available systems, specifically Exchange, SQL Server, Cognos, and Regex, and Windows clusters are here. So with that, I will hand it over to Danny. I believe everyone can see Danny's desktop, and we're going to jump right into a demo of PMF and the organization.
All right, it's all yours, Danny.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Just want to make sure.
Looks good from our end.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, thank you for the introduction and also for kind of setting the stage for what we're going to be looking at today. Parallels Mac Management is a plug-in into SCCM. We utilize the full same infrastructure that you have already stood up, that you deliver and administer your Windows devices through. So we utilize, the same SCCM SQL database, the same distribution points, your primary, secondary sites. So we are physically tied into SCCM in a very tight way, without having to stand up dedicated siloed hardware and software and standing up additional administrators that have no work inside of SCCM. So we really try to bring that single pane of glass management, kind of a holistic look at your Windows and Mac environment within SCCM. And what we try to do, what we do right off the bat is we need to find your Macs, and we need to get those Macs enrolled into SCCM. And we have a couple of methods that we do that with. We have a network discovery process where we can scan your network, and we can look at your boundaries. When Parallels Mac Management is installed, it brings in all of your predefined boundaries that you already have in place. You can select the boundaries that you'd like to scan in, and then based off of the accounts that are on a Mac, if you've got a local administrator account or an AD account that's on the Mac, we can set those here. And what we're trying to achieve here is an automated install of our Parallels Mac Management client without any user intervention. So that way, once a Mac is found on the network, it can tunnel through using port 22 SSH and then connect into the Mac through remote management. That's another piece we need to have turned on. And once that handshake is initiated, the Mac client will silently be installed and then start collecting information for its first. This all takes place by setting a schedule. So we can set those for weekly, monthly, or whatever customer interval we'd like to have. And then it will start looking for your Macs, bring them into SCCM, enroll them, and then we can start managing them, putting them, if you think about it, putting them into a business asset kind of a framework. So that way we can give them the same management focus that we would for our Windows devices that are in SCCM. Once a Mac is found, it comes into the All Mac OS X Systems collection. That's a collection that's built out during the install of Parallels Mac Management. The query that's based inside of this collection looks for the Macs that come into the device folder and then brings them into the All Mac OS X Systems area. So that way it's a little easier to deal with the Macs that come in. If they weren't named with something at the end or the middle that defined it as a Mac, it would just look like any other Windows device. And this just makes it a little easier for an administrator to know they're working with a Mac system. If you notice, this one shows up as having a client and shows activity on it. We've got today's date down there at the bottom, so it's got a good heartbeat, so we know that the Mac is functioning properly. And we have some right-click options here that we can take advantage of, just like on our Windows devices. You notice down at the bottom there, we've got some branded Parallels Mac Management things that we can do. And right off the bat, at the top there, we see Connect via VNC. We have the ability to remote into a running Mac at the administrative level. We can connect out via VNC. Then we also have Connect via SSH. So we can get out to the command line, again, through administrative login, and then do any type of work with it that might be necessary at the command line. And just like on our Windows devices, we have machine policy updates there for retrieval and evaluation cycle, so we can refresh the policy down to the device. So if there are any new policies, new apps, packages, configuration items, we deliver those down to the target Mac. Up the chain here, underneath Start and Resource Explorer, we can take a look at our Mac and get my window back here. and click on the hardware and see that we have collected an inventory. So right off the bat, when a device is found and brought into SCCM, it'll go into a full inventory and software cycle and then fall into SCCM's regular cycle for looking for new hardware or software. We report on Apple warranty information, so we can take care of Apple Care warranty status on your device. We also have reporting on File Vault 2. I have a virtual machine that I'm demonstrating out of today, so I didn't encrypt my virtual machine disk, but had this been physical hardware, I would have a key type that would show up, whether that would be the private key or an institutional key, and then give me the status on that. Parallels Mac Management as a configuration item can set up and deploy out File Vault 2 disk encryption to a collection of Macs, and that could either be for a private key or institutional key that has been generated at the IT level, and then we can put that into a reporting status as well to bring back that information if you need to decrypt the machine. We've got a report that will show the global installation for File Vault 2, or you can right-click on a device and find that information as well. Let's see, we also have installed applications. This shows every bit of software that's on the Mac. Most of what you're seeing is the com.apple. That's everything that was possibly installed at the time the image was laid down, but then we'll see device drivers and other software that's on the Mac as well. So this is a complete listing of everything that's on this Mac. And we also have information on the operating system, the build number, BIOS information, got the serial number there. So there's a lot of specific device and software information that we've collected on the Mac, and all this is reported into the same SQL database that all the Windows devices report into. We found a Mac, we've got it enrolled, it's gone through an inventory process. Now we can do some things with it. We can take advantage of compliance settings and create baselines, and then we can put our configuration items into those baselines. So that way we can maybe gain some business asset posture for our devices, where we can get some repeatable behavior to show up. If, once people move things around, sometimes they get lost. It generates tickets. Where did something go? I'm not sure what I did, but through configuration items, we can set these baselines to kick off against the collection to enforce behavior. If you notice up at the top, we've got again some more parallels branding. This is some things that we can take a deeper dive into Mac management in SCCM, because we can create, and you'll see when we go into application and package deployment, that we use native SCCM workflow to create those objects. So it's a mixture of what we've added to SCCM in the way of our plugin, but then also just utilizing some of the things that are already built into SCCM. So if we click on the object at the top left there, we can create a configuration profile. We'll use Mac payloads to create those, but then we can also bring in mobile config files. So if you already are managing your Macs and have mobile config files, we can import those in so you can keep that same management posture across your Macs now out of SCCM. So a brand new config file looks very similar to what you would see on a Apple server for its profile configuration. We have a subset of those, so you can take these, or like I said before, if you have some mobile config files, you can bring those in as well. So we can set the dock location if we want to, how it behaves. We can also do networking. We can configure Wi-Fi or Ethernet settings. So there's a few things here that we can set kind of repeatable behavior to happen at a collection level down to the Mac. And again, this sets it into a business asset posture rather than, kind of an ad hoc computer that people make a lot of changes to and then spins up support tickets. So this will get us into our enterprise posture for repeatable behavior. So we can apply those to a collection. There's my baseline, and I've put it against my all Mac OS X system. So every Mac in that collection will receive that that baseline or baselines. We can deliver different ones as we'd like. So we've put our Macs into compliance. We'll take a look at let's see here, software library. We just spoke a little bit about some SCCM native functionality. On the package side, if we want to deploy packages, we can utilize all of the native Apple installers, DMG, PKG, ISO scripts. So we can right-click on packages and utilize SCCM's create package workflow and give it the name and all the descriptions and everything that you would normally do. We would browse out and find our DMG or our PKG and bring that in and complete the rest of the create package wizard, making this a mandatory program with administrative rights to run, so that way it would install silently in the background to completion. It would end up in the application folder on the Mac and be ready to run. The one difference between a Mac, I guess, and the Windows side of things would be the command line. Now, if I was creating a package for a Windows deployment, it would have the MSI exec command with a space and a / and the rest of the string that would denote how that install would take place down to the Windows device. For a command line, we have something similar, but this is for the Mac. It's pretty easy to put together. Basically, it's a semicolon with the application that we're going to deploy, and inside the application is the app. So basically, the DMG is a container, and inside of it is what we're going to deliver down to the application folder. So there's a couple of semicolons, a /, a few pieces there that will help the Mac know what to do with it once it's delivered. And again, this is all SCCM native workflow that we're able to utilize to deploy native Apple image, or excuse me, application images down to a Mac. Now on the application side, we have an app portal that we can deliver our applications into, and for applications we need to adhere to Microsoft's guidance on this. SCCM can't deliver a Apple application natively and has to be run through Microsoft's CM app util program. We can put that utility on a Mac and then open up a command line through terminal and run the DMG through that terminal command process, and the output will be CMMAC, a .CMAC extension. And once we've created that extension, we can then do the same right-click and create an application and change a couple of settings for, this is in Mac OS X deliverable, and then find that CMAC file, bring that in, and there's that extension right there. That's the only thing that we can bring in as an application. And once we've done that, we can use the rest of the wizard to make an available application, and that will show up in our app portal down on our Mac client. Let's take a look at one of these here for properties to see what else we can take advantage of. Because it is an application, we can utilize the application catalog settings. So then when the application shows up in our app portal, it'll be categorized in a similar fashion to what maybe System Center's app delivery system would look like from the web interface on System Center. So we can create our own user categories, check the box for the software type, and then we can import an icon FTP software is our category. This is CyberDuck, so it's an FTP program. And then we can then deploy that against a collection. And this one is going out again to my all Mac OS X systems. So every Mac in that system, or in that, excuse me, that collection will get that delivery. So let's drop down here and take a look at our Mac. There's our application portal. Go ahead and launch that. And there's a couple of apps that have been deployed down to the portal. And actually, it's metadata, so it's information about what can be installed down to the Mac. So you can give it as much information or detail that you think your end users might need to decide what they want. But then again, you can put those into different categories and publishers. So you could let your end users know they can go to the app portal, self-select the software that they want. Part of the upside with this is that you don't need elevated rights to install software through the app portal. So a lot of Mac users will fight for administrative rights because they need that to install software. But if your applications have already been prepackaged and everything's in the app portal, all they need is basic user credentials. They don't need elevated credentials to do the install. And then if the install has been scripted with an uninstall, if the app has been installed, it will instead say install, it will say remove or uninstall, and you're able to remove the software from the system without any help desk intervention. The end user can just go back to the app portal and do their uninstall if they'd like to do that. Inside of system preferences is where our Parallels Mac management icon will reside, and this will give us some information about when it last connected. It connected to, there's our site code for SCCM. That's the version right there. And then just as we did a refresh for policy from SCCM down to the client, we can do the same thing connecting back up to SCCM to see if there might be some new policy or new applications or packages ready for delivery. So we can hit connect, and at this time there wasn't anything to download. So we can refresh policy from the Mac. Get back to SCCM. Okay, so yeah, we can deliver applications and packages utilizing methodology right out of SCCM that has really no connection to any Parallels Mac management. So there's native functionality there that Windows administrators will be very familiar with. And if we continue on down inside of the software library area, we can go take a look at our operating systems. Parallels Mac management has an optional install for a NetBoot service that goes on your distribution point, and it takes advantage of WDS and Pixie and bits, all the same things that a Windows image deployment would need to deliver down to a Windows device. But again, we are Mac, so it's kind of interesting. We can create Windows, or excuse me, we can create Apple images, native images right off of Mac, and bring those over to SCCM, but it won't know what to do with them. So built into Parallels Mac management is the ability to import, and what it does at that point is put a WIM wrapper around the boot image and the restore image, so that way SCCM knows that it's just another device that or image that it can deal with inside of SCCM. So if you even notice here, the icons have little Windows flags on it. So once we get those images in, we can create task sequences and customize the delivery of that operating system. Now, we in the past have created monolithic, big, thick deliveries of operating systems where everything was inside of it. With the task sequence capabilities now, we can create very thin images with maybe some common software in it, but Some institutions have just created the image itself and done all the heavy lifting with a task sequence, so that way you can build out the task sequence to meet the needs of the deployment. So each one of these task sequences could be, like one says here, you could have software and configuration just for the science department or something just for the engineering department. That way, when the task sequence goes through its processing at the image deployment level, you can select which one you want, and the outcome will be a very tailored delivery of an operating system with the right software. So let's take a look here. If you notice again up at the top left, we've got some branding that indicates that this is a Parallels Mac management task. It's got our Parallels logo on it. So we could create task sequences utilizing the native workflow, but they won't have the deeper kind of offerings that we have within the task sequence for Macs. So we have to give something a name, and then we need to browse out and find our image that we want to layer this against. There we go. Now we can edit that, and we can start layering in some things. So we can, of course, put down our image. That's the first thing that we want to do. And we have options now for joining a domain. We can bind to the domain, and we can install software. That would be packages. Then we can also set variables, host name, group assignments, and then we can tailor how these step through the task sequence. Disable the step or continue on error. Let me open up one that I've already created here. And we'll edit the task sequence for Mac. If I did that, if I just did properties or double-clicked on it, it wouldn't give me the same ability to attach some of the Mac features to it. So this one is going to use the restore image, and we're going to set a host name during the task sequence, and then we're going to join the domain. One thing that you don't see here that will happen is putting on the Parallels Mac Management Client. That's the last step of the task sequence, and it automatically does that during the task sequence steps when we actually get that going, which I guess I will go ahead and do right now. Okay. I'm going to start up an OSD shell, so there's no virtual machine in this. Then I'm going to interrupt its processing here and go to EFI network. If I had a physical Mac in front of me, I would, of course, power it up, but then I would hit the N key so I could do a net boot. Since I'm working out of a VM set here, I have to perform a couple other extra steps. And we'll make use of our boot process to get out to the netboot service or modified netboot service that's on the distribution point where all the Windows deployment features are at that we're taking advantage of. Again, that WIM wrapper gets us the ability to do that. And we'll get out to a task sequence login that will authenticate through and then get the task sequence running. We're kind of winding down to the end of the demonstration here with imaging being the last piece. I guess we could open it up for questions if there were any at this point. Is there anything I need to do to change that?
Danny, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, a couple of questions did come in. Actually, 3 questions. So I'll read them out loud to you, and you can go from there. How's that sound?
That's great.
Okay, so here's one from Joshua. Does Apple warranty info show just the serial number, or does it go out and query the GSX APIs for actual warranty information?
Right. Yeah. It does ping the server, and so it would bring back that information.
Okay, very good. Thanks. There's another question from Joshua here. Inside a task sequence under options, you can set if conditions. How do those fit in? For instance, on Windows, you can set a registry condition to only run if a specific registry entry is present.
Okay, let's take a look back in here.
Okay.
Right, yeah. I haven't used if statements, so I can't give you a definite on that, but if I could get Joshua's contact information, I'd be glad to get him the use of this option to see if that compares with what he's looking for on the Windows side.
Okay, yep, I'll send that over to you, Danny. Thank you very much. You'll get an answer, Joshua. All right, we'll go to the next question then from Dan. Can clients be installed without the discovery method? Example, internet, field-based systems?
Currently, we're only working within the confines of your networks. We don't have a, I guess it's the equivalent of what SCCM would do if you had HTTPS enabled and you could connect out through the internet. Yeah, I've had Windows laptops in the past with SCCM in that HTTPS mode where I got updates and new software, and it was fully managed while I was, sitting at home or whether I was at the airport, and if new updates were present, they would just show up because I had that configured that way. We will have remote-facing support in a future release. We update twice a year, and I think we may be 2 itinerations out from getting that type of support. So right now, this is for within the confines of your boundaries, inside the company and not internet facing.
Excellent, thanks, Danny. Hope that answered your question, Dan. Fred asks a question. Can System Center endpoint protection be managed through Parallels?
Yeah, we can deliver the software and install it out of SCCM as a package. So yes, we can do that.
Okay, excellent. That was all that we had for now, but we can definitely stay on the line and answer some more questions if anyone has anything else to ask.
Yeah, and I'm just working through the last steps of the task sequence. So yeah, we definitely are at the point here where the task sequence would roll through a few more steps and present us with a fully functioning Mac at this point. So yeah, we're good for any more questions, or if anybody wanted to stay around to see the rest of this, that's available as well.
Excellent, and I just want to let everyone know, and I did type this in the chat box earlier, the recording will be sent out to all of you shortly after this webinar is finished. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. I will put our info alias in the chat box as well. Danny, did you have anything else you needed to show?
No,
Okay.
Right now this is kind of the cooking show at the end there where we have made the creation, and now we're just waiting to bring the other one out of the oven. So
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely just waiting for things to happen, and at a point here where yeah, if there were any other questions, please let me know, but if not, we can conclude.
Okay, sounds good.
And just as an overview for what is happening here, the task sequence is restoring the image. After restoring, it'll check the image to make sure that it did lay down correctly, and then reboot the system, and then set the host name that I manually typed in. It will join the domain, bind to it, and then the last step there is to install the Parallels Mac client. Let's see, I think one of the other questions that I may not have answered fully about image or the Parallels Mac client. So we can, we do network discovery. We also, you can take the DMG that is the installer and you can manually install that to a client. So we do have the facility within SCCM to gather that information. Let me close out of that item. We'll go to administration and to our discovery method, Mac client enrollment. This is the URL from where the DMG, the PMA agent, would be delivered from. You can take that URL and go out to any browser on a Mac and invoke a download of the client. At that point, it would be a manual install. Once you launch it, it mounts. It would be a next kind of proposition up to putting in some user credentials that are local user. Once it does the install, that completes. A few seconds later, it opens up the next part of the install, which is enrollment into SCCM. It would then go through a few steps and then ask for a user account that has rights to enroll into SCCM. And once those credentials are put in and accepted, it would complete the enrollment. And at that point, the client would then start talking back to SCCM for its first inventory of hardware and software, and to see if there's anything in that collection, whether it's policy or applications, could be brought down to the Mac. So we do have a manual way of doing this.
Some more questions have come in, Danny, so this is great. We've got one from CL. Are the software updates, OS updates, part of the support for this integration?
Right. What I've been demonstrating on today is version 4.0. We've just recently come out with version 4.5, excuse me. And let's see if I can bring that up. Let me log in here. And okay, if we can still see everything here. In this instance, I have all software updates showing here, and let's see, I'm going to add a sort feature here. Let's look for vendor. There we go. So version 4.5 includes an optional feature for installing a software update point. And if you already have the WSUS role enabled and have a certificate for that, we can connect out to Apple and bring back metadata on Apple software, patches, OS X updates into WSUS, and the metadata then allows us to create update groups. We can download it, and then we can deliver that out to a collection, and then it will automatically create the deployment and then target that collection with the updates that you've chosen to do so with. So this is our what we call a default method, where we utilize that software update point. We also have instructions on how to configure an installation where you use another software update point. So you can now receive that metadata, decide what packages you want, and then get those distributed out for patch deployment.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Danny. A couple more questions, actually. Does the ability, Robert asked, sorry, does the ability to configure the dock allow one to pick and choose what icons will be on the dock for users of the target Mac?
That is not in there. I've seen some very ingenious scripting folks deliver to the dock, but that's something outside of that payload from Apple. So yeah, we're just passing along what Apple has in the way of their dock management. So no, we don't have that.
Okay, thank you, Danny. And Fred asks another question. Do the Macs have to be bound to AD first, Active Directory?
No, yeah, no, they don't. Once they're scanned and found and the client's put on it, that's just basic network discovery. So there is no need for it to first be bound. You can bound after the fact if you'd like, But our task sequence, if you're imaging for the first time, gives you the option to bind it to the network if you'd like.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, it looks like the questions have stopped for now. Again, we'll hang on for a few more minutes if anyone can think of anything else they would like responded. This is great.
And it looks like our task sequence has fully deployed out each of its pieces. And we'll take a look here, see what we've delivered a Mavericks OSX image here. Wait just a second. We've got our dock. Looks like we've got everything we can take advantage of. We'll get into system preferences. I like to make sure that we actually have our client. And there's our version number. I'll hit the connect button. No policies yet. It's just barely making contact with SCCM. So it may not have even registered that it has a live or a good client yet. But at some point we'll get some policy updates. And then, let's see, where else did I want to go? Come on. Well, we'll take a look at there we go, users and groups. And if we hit the login options, we see that it did bind to the network account server, so that's my domain, and so I'm in Active Directory now as well, based off of that task sequence firing off. No policy yet. The other thing we can check is we can go to Applications, see if we have an app portal, and there it is. That's the first place that it shows up, is in Applications. I pinned mine to the dock to make it easier for the demonstration that I showed a little bit earlier. Yeah, and it hasn't fully been enforced yet for policy, so I don't have any applications showing up yet. But essentially, that's a task sequence delivery of our target OSX image.
Excellent.
So any other questions?
Yeah, two more have come in. This is great. It's quite interactive. So Josh asks another question. If I were to run a script in the task sequence, do task sequence environment variables exist?
They do. Yeah, you can utilize variables. We can basically take whatever you would script in a Mac and utilize that within SCCM.
Great, thank you. And Robert has another question. Is there an option to test the Parallels Management tool either within our own SCCM or accessible in a virtualized environment?
Yeah, we have a hosted lab. We can set you up for 3 days inside of our internet-facing lab. It's got an SCCM instance and the same OSX image with a client on it. You can walk through our reviewer's guide, which is basically a hands-on how to do each task. A lot of the ones that I covered today are in there, from finding the Mac, bringing it in. You can remove the client on the Mac so it doesn't have anything on it. You could deliver a client to it either manually or through the scanning, network scanning. There's packages that you can deploy out, configuration item steps that the reviewer's guide will walk you through so you can put the Mac into a management state. And then we have built out ready-to-use images. So we've got a boot and a restore image. You can create task sequences and then deliver those images out to an OSD shell that doesn't have anything in it, and then walk through that whole task sequence step to see the completion of a client that would show up for you to check out and see what it looks like. And then that would be the main way to go about doing this. We don't, we've got another program called Jumpstart that's a paid POC, and it's based on having 30 seats paid for, and then you can use this for a year, which gives you 5 hours of sales engineer time, either myself or my lead, and then you have 24/7 parallel support for that, and you can use that for a year. You can, after you put it into a lab, if you wanted to throw that into production, either way, you have our support for getting that installed and up and running, so we could book some time and then get a WebEx going and get that installed for you. So we do have that option as well.
Great. That's very informative. Lots of information there. I will give out some information at the end of the webinar when I send out the recording to everyone, and let them know how you can contact Parallels, the sales team. That'll all be there for you as well. And sorry, another question is coming from CL, Danny. It says, is there any integration with the Apple VPP for apps purchased using VPP?
That's a roadmap item for us. We will be integrating that into Parallels Mac Management. And yeah, so that will be a feature. It's probably, I think, maybe one iteration away.
Okay, sounds great. Josh has another question. He says, oftentimes you use WQL for task sequence queries to, for instance, push a license update to all users with a specific app installed. Is that performed similarly on Macs as one would for Windows objects in SCCM? Sorry, he's corrected himself. It's collection queries he's referring to.
Haven't run into using that, so I can't say either way which, how that would play out. But if I could get that question, I can definitely pose that to our support team to see if that's something.
Yep, definitely. I'll give you.
Possible.
Yeah, sure. That's great. We'll get an answer for you, Joshua. That's great, Danny. Okay. The questions have halted for now, but looks like we're getting some great interaction here today.
Yeah. I just refreshed. It looks like we have some policy updates, and I would surmise we might have a couple of apps haven't shown up yet. So anyway, we can keep poking at it, or
sure.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, great. And lo and behold, another question has come in from CL. Do you plan to provide support for iOS integration as well in the future?
No, we aren't really a mobile device management platform. We let Intune, Microsoft's Intune, address that space, because they update and are able to put more feature sets in faster than we are, because we're really dedicated towards kind of the core areas of finding and enrolling and compliance software, image deployment, that kind of a thing. So it's not really part of our deliverables for any type of mobile device management.
Okay, great. These are great questions. It's a good thing that your demo ended when it did, so we can take all these questions. That's worked out perfectly. Okay, well, we'll stick around, everyone, if you have any further questions.
And just a note, it looks like policy enforcement did happen. My dock moved over to the left-hand side, and we do see some applications showing up inside the portal. So we do have a fully connected and managed Mac at this point.
Great. Again, perfect timing. Well, we'll stay live for a couple more minutes and see if any other questions come in. And if not, I'm going to say thank you, Danny, for a wonderful presentation. That was great. You definitely know your stuff. Fantastic. And it looks
Thank
like
you very much.
You're welcome. And it looks like everyone got a lot out of it. Some great questions. Thanks for your participation, everyone. The recording will get to you most likely later today with some other information. And if you do have any questions, you can reach out to Parallels. You can reach out to Infront. We are partners. We hope you join us next time for what most likely will be another webinar of this nature in the future. So thank you. I'm going to say thank you. Have a great rest of the day. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes in case something comes in. And thank you, Danny.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
My pleasure.
Mm-hmm.